Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Williams. I'm one of the Adult and Community Services Managers for the Columbia Public Library, which is part of the Daniel Boone Regional Library System. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. Today's update from the Minority Men's Network is co-hosted by the Library and the League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County. I will put the websites for both Minority Men's Network and the League in our chat for you for future reference. And before I turn things over to the League to introduce our speaker, I just have a couple of very familiar, by this point, Zoom housekeeping items. If you want to ask a question of our presenter today, we ask that you use the chat feature of Zoom. So if you hover over your Zoom window, you should see that microphone, the chat bubble at the bottom. Looks like a little speech bubble. Click on that and you can type your question. If you're on a tablet or a smartphone, you may have to tap in the middle of your screen to get those tools or to see a menu. We are recording today's presentation, so it will be available in the next day or two on both the League's YouTube channel and the library's YouTube channel for future viewing and to share with your friends and colleagues who couldn't make it today. So now I'd like to welcome our moderator, League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County President, Barbara Hoppe. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Lauren Williams, and thank you to the Daniel Boone Regional Library for co-hosting our Lunch and Learn program as they do every month. I'm pleased to announce today that and pleased to welcome Dr. Fred Williams III as our guest speaker, who is from the Men's Minority Network. And Dr. Fred Williams is Associate Professor in pathobiology, which he tells me is also related to crime he's a crime scene investigator, which is very interesting. He works with the College of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Missouri. He moved to Columbia in 2002 from Miami, Florida, and he has been a member of the Men's Minority Network for 20 years, and he has served in a leadership position for about 10 years. So we welcome Dr. Fred Williams III, and we look forward to hearing what the Men's Minority Network is doing in our community. Dr. Williams.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for that introduction, Barbara. So I just had a quick presentation to kind of go over who we are, the Minority Men's Network, in our educational fund, and I will talk about who we are, what we do, and kind of what we represent, and then have an opportunity towards the end to have more of an open-ended discussion so we can talk about what's going on. And I mentioned that I'm the interim president at the moment. Our previous president had to step away to pursue another opportunity somewhere else, so I've stepped in as the vice president to now lead our organization for the time being. So there is a lot of verbiage here. I don't need you to read through all of that, but just, this is who we are as the Minority Men's Network. We're very interested in education and academic excellence. We're looking to try to move the bar towards a cradle to career opportunity for some of the marginalized communities in Columbia, and that's what we'd like to do. We think education is one of the main ways we can achieve that, and so we're really trying to push strong educational goals and values in our high schools. We work as mentors and role models for the youth in our community as well. And pre-COVID, some of these things are going to definitely be pre-COVID, but we tried to do as much as we could to try to add representation so that people could see minority men and marginalized men win professional positions and positions of some authority and areas that we can use to bring others with us to try to reach that hand back to bring someone up with us as well. And I've had many opportunities for teenage men or some of our adolescents to come and view the vet school and give tours about what I do, which can be a little gross sometimes, but that's okay. But they think they really like that when about that age. And we try to introduce students to other professions, places where we can give them opportunity to maybe shadow someone who's doing something really important in our community and get an idea of what running that business is like. We like to value economic empowerment for other ethnic minorities and disadvantaged persons in our community. We feel as though there are some opportunities to support some minority or marginalized community businesses, and we'd like to promote those as often as possible. So we try to provide advertisements and allow people to find opportunities if they were going to pursue a marginalized business. Then we try to provide an area where they can come to ask us, and we can direct them in the right towards the right person. And we also try to support diversity and inclusion and everywhere, especially in our community. We act as a voice towards our community as an advisory position to our community leaders, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we pursue. So what do we do? One of the main things that we actually do right now is our scholarship fund. Now we'll talk about that more specifically a little later, but we have a very great scholarship that we provide to students in high schools in Columbia. We do quite a bit of community service. We try to find opportunities where we can fill in to help people in need, or if there are organizations that could use a little bit of help financially, we could step in there, or advice, or any of our expertise, as well as social education and communication. That is one of the primary ways we like to be involved. There are some social justice issues that we try to participate with from a professional and hopefully a level-headed approach that we can talk to community leaders and try to get some change in our community and beyond. And our primary motto is improving the lives of others through service. A little bit of history. Back in 1985, Elliot Battle and Arva Strickland came up with the co-conveners. They were two of the early minority men in leadership positions here in Columbia. And they came up with that idea to try to bring together some of the minority and marginalized group professionals and provide a welcoming community for them if they were moving into the area or they're trying to get new jobs here. There weren't a lot of us at work, so that was a good opportunity for them to provide that as an initial concept. By 1996, they worked with a few other community leaders and partners to come up with a directory, speaking to youth, a sampling of African-American community leaders, trying to provide, again, more that representation that we had discussed and opportunities for people to see other minority professionals and ways they could proceed with their own lives as role models and mentors. By 1998, we'd come up with the actual Minority Men's Network as formalized as a group, and we set up our 501(c)(3), I always forget the totality of that, but as a group, a nonprofit group that's involved with our community. And then by 2002, we developed our specific scholarship, which is we defined as the Ron Marley Scholarship in memoriam to one of our members that had passed away. In honor, we have changed one of those scholarships, the one at Douglas, to the Sion Williams Scholarship. And that's one of our members. Actually, there's a picture of Sion Williams here. He was 99 years young, and we wanted to honor him as being a paramount member of the community. So community engagement and partnership. There are a few historical things that we've been involved with that I wanted to try to highlight. We've been very involved with establishing the Community Review Board. I'm not sure how many of you are actually aware of that, but the Community Review Board was set up this is not recent, by the way. This is, I don't know exactly when the Community Review Board was set up, but it's been at least more than a decade, that if there's a grievance with the way that an interaction between the community and the police department has occurred, there is an in-house system for addressing that grievance in the police department. However, it's clear that a lot of people in the community may not feel as though people in the police department have the best objectivity when trying to decide how to negotiate a grievance with their own department. So the Citizens Review Board was set up as an opportunity for people to have an outside source that could take that grievance to and perhaps have it reviewed by a more objective group. And then that would perhaps lead to some accountability and improve relationships between the police department and the community. So I'm not sure exactly who's on the board at present, but we were instrumental in getting that board set up with the police department. And as far as I know, it's still in service. We were tapped by some of the community leaders when they needed to set up a new city manager. People felt as though we have an ear to the grindstone as it is to talk to the community and to be a voice for the minority and marginalized community in Columbia as to who we would like to see in those kinds of positions. We worked with NAACP after an alarming report came out about the police stop record in Columbia, that marginalized groups and especially minority men were being targeted more often. And we wanted to bring that to the police department's attention and see what could be done about that and look for some accountability. That's an ongoing process. We've had an opportunity to meet with the police chief ourselves in some of our early morning meetings, with having those people come out and talk to us specifically so they can get some one-on-one discussions with people in the community that are being affected by these decisions. And we thought that would be some really great feedback for those people in that position. Chief Jones has been very welcoming and warm and come to some of our meetings. We had some good opportunities to talk with him. I believe we worked with the League of Women Voters in the past to create some of these Meet the Candidates events, where I have definitely been in a situation where it's come up to time for an election and I'm looking at this ballot and like, I don't really recognize any of these people. And I know that some of those things are out in the newspaper, but I don't read a lot of print newspaper anymore. Most things have gone online. But I really appreciate those opportunities where we could have a situation where one of those candidates could come to a meeting and talk to the community and let us know what their platform was. And so I'm glad we were able to participate in that and look forward to being able to do more of that with the community in the future. And some of the Meet the Official events. There are a few minority and marginalized people that have had new appointments in the community, and we go out of our way to try to extend opportunities for those community leaders to meet other people in the community so they can have meet and greets. And we set those up periodically as we identify people that folks would like to meet, to have some more one-on-one meetings for the community. Those have been pretty great so far. And another thing we've been involved with is the Brake Light Clinic. We've partnered with another organization to help set up an opportunity to provide free brake lights and brake light replacements for people who have opportunities, drivers in our community who may or may not know that brake lights aren't functional. The background there is that brake lights being out is one of the ways that people end up being stopped and have negative interactions with the police department. And we figured if there was a way we could step in to provide opportunity to fix those, we could cut down on some of those interactions, because it can start off as something innocuous and then turn into something less so. So we figured, well, how about if we avoid the situation altogether? And for people who don't know how to change their brake light, it could be kind of an onerous process, and some places can charge quite a bit of money for it. But once you figure out how to do it, it's actually pretty easy. And the brake lights themselves are pretty cheap. So what we do is set up a fund where we buy a number of brake lights, and then we just have people come meet us at a central location. The last few times it's been at Job Point off of Wilkes and Providence, and we have people meet us there, and we change their brake lights for them. Pre-COVID, we had some small gatherings where people could come and meet and have a quick snack. We made brats and sodas and chips for them to hang out with their children while their cars were serviced, and then we sent them on their way. We have been fortunate enough to have some local mechanics who had volunteered their time. We could also do some light mechanical work. We fixed a couple of trunks, we replaced a panel for just to get some things done for people who maybe either can't afford it or just don't have the time to get those things done themselves. We're looking to try to find our niche. We're trying to find where our place is in this situation as being members of the community. And we're one of the things we've been working towards looking in the future is trying to set up a community calendar. We believe that there are a number of organizations in our community that trying to work towards improving engagement, improving inclusion, improving diversity. But perhaps if we all are working individually and not communicating about what's happening, we end up with 4 or 5 events that are probably very similar to the same thing, or maybe events which will overlap each other, and that can be a problem. So we were trying to find a way to set something, a larger community calendar where everyone can be on the same page and we won't plan events that undercut each other. We're looking to try to put out together a social justice group roundtable for taking those individual groups as well, providing a semi-regular way for those groups to get together and just talk. If there are things that we can work on together, perhaps we can support each other, and that would be really great, rather than having maybe individual efforts being divided, working towards a similar goal. Another concept we've been put forward was perhaps working for a summit for Black men to try to give some more informational opportunities and job opportunities for people to pursue rather professions that they may not be very familiar with. And like I said, in general, provide a network of marginalized professionals and groups, opportunity for those people to find, if you'd like to support a Black-owned business or a marginalized business, we can come to us, we can point you in the right direction to find someone who's doing something like that that you can support. Some other ideas, some of our activities in action. In 2019, we were involved with a visit to the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, Tennessee, where we set up an opportunity for some of our members, local officials, and members of the police department to travel out to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, spend the day, have an overnight, and then drive back. But it was a great opportunity, I think, for everyone involved to communicate and to perhaps get some different perspective about what's going on in communities that they may not be familiar with. And I think it was a roaring success. All parties seemed to be really involved, and it provided us a good opportunity to set up a connection with the Civil Rights Museum in Tennessee. One of the things we are involved with is reading at Norris Stewart. Norris Stewart is a preschool and daycare group that's active in our community. They provide some early education opportunities for some marginalized community groups in Columbia. We were set up an opportunities for our members to show up and read to those students. Now, the reading was great because it allowed for the staff to have a brief break while we entertained the students, but it would also primarily an opportunity for them to get some representation, for them to see minority and marginalized members of the community as doctors, lawyers, our representatives, city officials, et cetera, coming and talking to them specifically, and that they could be, someone do something like that themselves one day. They could be them as well. Also, it would provide a good opportunity for us to donate some books and materials to the school. Try to go out and find an unusual book. And I'm sure they have lots of things already present, but if I could find something super weird and bring it and just leave it, that was great also. And if you haven't seen it, oh my goodness, I can't remember the name of it right now, but there's a book where the reader has to make a lot of weird sounds, and it's really embarrassing for the reader, but kids love it. So I brought one of those and just left it because my kids really enjoyed it. And when they grew out of it, I decided to just go ahead and leave it with Norris Stewart. We haven't had an opportunity to do as much of that with COVID. I'm not sure how we're going to get back into that because a room full of young preschool children seems like a really bad idea for older gentlemen at the moment, but we'll see what we can do. I'd like to reestablish some type of connection with them. We have been involved with Clean Up Columbia quite a bit. One of our members, Doug Simmons, has been spearheading that. And we get together along Garth Avenue, pick up trash and refuse, trying to represent taking care of our own community ourselves. And I think it's a really good metric to show to people as what we're doing. Specifically, to get to the Ron Marley Scholarship, this is probably the major focus of what we do. We try to give out one $2,000 scholarship to each of the local high schools, and students apply and let us know something a little bit about themselves. It's not completely merit-based. There are a number of factors that go into it. Need is also pretty important in deciding who gets which scholarship, but we have managed to give out one $2,000 scholarship to each of the local high schools for several years now. And I did a little bit of digging, and I managed to find that since 2003, we've given away approximately $39,000. So that's been a really great success, and we've been able to give back to our community as often as we can. After we announced the scholarship winners, previously we would invite the scholarship winner and their families to come to a dinner or luncheon at the University Club, which is illustrated down here at the bottom, where we would have them come out and then treat them to a nice lunch and present them with a plaque and allow them to just give us a brief talk about what they're up to. I'd also like to add that in addition to scholarships towards universities, these scholarships can also be used towards trade schools. So people looking to go a different direction. I think that while college is a great opportunity for many, it's not necessary for all. I think people who are interested in professional avenues of plumbing, electrical work, all those carpentry, those kinds of things are also really great, and we like to support them as well. So moving forward, where do we go from here? We're looking to try to get a civil rights presentation coming from the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, as I mentioned earlier. We'd like them to try and give us a brief presentation about some of the contributions of some of the important or maybe less well-known minority men and marginalized men in the civil rights movement. Looking to try to provide a signature event. We're not sure exactly how to go about that, but we were thinking perhaps a regular dinner we could provide every year. Again, that kind of opportunity went a little off kilter once COVID came up, and setting up large engagements with people wasn't such a great idea either. So we're trying to see where to go with that, but we're still moving towards a lot of community engagement, working with our community planners and organizers to do the best we can to try to provide some input of what the community may be thinking or feeling. So that's pretty much the mainstay of my presentation. What can you do for us? I think supporting the scholarship is a great primary step. Como Gives was a really great opportunity for us this year. And if you can, go ahead and go donate through that. That was great. We're looking forward to another donation next year. In the meantime, we have a website where you can give donations year round, and that all of that helps to support our local youth in our community. And looking forward, I would also really like to be more involved with another Meet the Candidate event. I think as we move forward, we really want more opportunities to have those candidates come down and talk to the community to show us who they really are, and so that we can have a better idea of who we need to support to get some of the changes we'd like to have locally. And other than that, thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. That was really amazing and educational for me. I thought I knew a lot about the Men's Minority Network, but you really explained a lot of things that you have been involved in that I wasn't aware of. I wanted to mention that when I was on the city council back in 2006, I actually met with and worked with the Men's Minority Network to get the Citizens Review Board established. And so I remember that clearly. It was in the basement of a church down there. And I also worked with David Tyson Smith. I think he was involved with that too. And I think Betty Wilson was the first chair of that committee. So that was a difficult but great accomplishment. And so I appreciate the Men's Minority Network sort of leading the charge on that and giving me all the information I needed to lead it on the council. Unfortunately, I think there's been some legislation that restricts the ability of the Citizen Review Board to interview and investigate, but hopefully we can change that. So anyways,
yeah, but even with that, there being some changes, letting people know about that kind of opportunity provides us with the opportunity to put pressure on the legislators to change that back to an area that would be more beneficial to the community. But please continue.
Right. I love the idea in your work on the brake light clinic, because as a public defender, I realized that a lot of people were stopped and minorities for brake lights, and then a lot of other problems would ensue. And so just getting around that is a great idea. So I'm encouraging people to donate to the Men's Minority Network, not only money, but maybe time to help in all these efforts. So I'm going to run and I didn't have questions, but I think I might now. Let's see here. Just a thank you for the deep review of past and present work that you're doing. And then that says there are a growing number of local nonprofit agencies headed by minority men. Does the Men's Minority Network reach out to them and or minority business owners?
Yes, to both, based on availability. And this is part of the problem. This is why we would like to have the network up and running as best as possible and do what we can to reach out to the community, because when those in situations pop up, if we don't know someone that knows them, then we don't know that that organization exists. So the more we have the people in the community engaged, the more we can have people talking and build a presence, then the less likely those people are to slip through the cracks and not be recognized. So when we find out about them, we definitely try to reach out to them and have them be as engaged as possible. The same with minority business owners. As far as I know, we try to definitely reach out to those individuals and have them become members if they can, or at least let us know what their business is about, so that we can direct people towards them when we hear about them. Our past president, Keith McIver, was involved with Columbia College, and then they had the Black Business Expo, which we tried to promote as well, to have opportunities for people to come out and see local, especially small business owners, share their wares and what kind of things they do. They're interior designers, they're perfume makers, they're caterers. I mean, there are people who had art, and it was a great opportunity. I really enjoyed being able to make it out there and picked up a number of really great items. And I think that we're trying to do more of that.
Thank you. Okay, there's someone who would like the link to the minorities network to make donations.
Mhm.
So maybe we can put that on the chat feature. And if you want to say it, feel free to
Well, yeah,
just
Lawrence added it
shout it
there,
out.
right below there, so it's
Okay.
present.
Great. Another question, I'd like to know more about the status of your social justice roundtable. That sounds like an excellent idea.
Well, it's in the planning phases at present. We are reaching out to other groups, trying to identify groups that are trying to do things. You know, the People's Defense Network, the NAACP, and our organization, trying to identify, their leaders and when we can find a good time to meet. When we try to get something together, up to now, something else has popped up, making meeting together less of a savory idea. So it's in the planning stages, but we are definitely going to move forward with it. It's one of our goals for this year.
Okay, I know there's another question or two. Would the Men's Minority Network publish a list of local minority-owned businesses?
That is definitely on my to-do list. We have recently upgraded our website to a more involved system. And what I'm trying to do is set up a database that people could self-fill out, and listing where their business is, what kind of business it is, and their contact information. And then we could try to build something from there to have a online published directory. But that is in the works. There are people that are figuring out how to work that new technology just now. We just got it updated at the end of last year, but that is definitely on the horizon as well. Something we'd like to make sure we had.
Thank you. Another question regarding the Civil Rights Museum. Is there a trip scheduled in the future?
Not planning a trip at present. They have their restrictions about how many are allowed and who can come in have changed clearly in the last year or so. So I figured, since it would be difficult to try to get everyone here to go out there, and we looked at the cost of renting a bus, and then it's just far enough away that you probably want to get a hotel room, then come back and work about food. In our virtual world, I was trying to find a way we could bring the Civil Rights Museum to us. So I've been in contact with their director about having them do a webinar for us, so that we can't go there. Perhaps they could bring a lot of their presentation to us, and we can provide it to the community free of charge. So the Minority Men's Network would be providing that webinar as a free service to the community. So anyone who wanted to participate could participate and get to see what was out there, and can encourage individual trips. But funding our own trip seemed like not a great idea. We could probably reach a limited number of people in the community, and safety at this point is always up in the air. So that's our direction.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let us know if the league can be of assistance, or maybe the library might be interested also. I'll let you talk to Lauren about that. Just some ideas. Let's see. Oh, here's a good question. Perhaps Dr. Williams has some ideas for the League of Women Voters, Columbia Boone County, concerning voter registration and registering voters in the minority community.
Well, that is on my list of things. I think we're looking for having more registered voters is always a firm goal. And I think what we're looking for is trying to find opportunities to reach out to the community. There aren't great networks at the moment, but I think trying to reach out to some of the local churches has been a really good, positive idea for us, and to give them brief presentations on both vaccine safety and vaccine opportunities, and then supporting, trying to get people educated about some of the poor ideas about COVID restrictions and COVID plans, and then adding, a voter registration on that would be a great idea. I think we should combine all three of those ideas, as well as letting people know about our scholarship so we can really do the best we can to make some short presentations to those groups.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, as I've been listening to your presentation, I was thinking of ways that the league can communicate and work with the Men's Minority Network on all those issues. So I think this is a great opportunity for mutual exchange and support. Let's see if I had a question, which was regarding, sort of related to the scholarships. Do you do other things with the school system other than the scholarships, like guest, mentorship, speakers, talking to classes? Just was wondering about that.
Well, yes. Well, in the past, we definitely have. We haven't had an opportunity to figure out how to get that up and running with the current protocols with the schools, but we definitely have done some of those things in the past. We've tried to have those students come out and see what we're doing. I try to host wet labs and have them come and touch and feel some gross lesions, and everyone likes a giant abscess to poke around with and watch pus ooze out of. So, and I talked to them also about some of the diversity in veterinary medicine, because that's definitely a field that could use some more influx. But we have done those things in the past, have gone out and talked to the elementary schools and taken some samples, and they like looking at bat skeletons and little, and animal parts, and that's been really great as well. But not recently. But we have talked to the entire gamut, from like those about to leave at the high school level, and then down at the elementary school level as well. Moreover, working at the high school level, I've been trying to work out opportunities to get people ready for interviews. I think I've come across too many times in an interview where someone is surprised by what I thought were basic interview questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or what's your greatest strength or weakness? And then people panic because they had no idea. And I think that's just a difference of exposure. And those are, like, any interview I go to, like, those are 5 or 6 questions I know they're just going to ask, so I'm already prepared to answer them. And that leads you to a greater ability to answer them because you're comfortable with them, as well as the recognition that a lot of interview questions don't have right or wrong answers. Really, what they're looking for is your ability to think about what you're saying and express yourself. But as people panic because they're looking for the right answer and trying to avoid the wrong answer, that leads to a poor interview experience. And I've been really surprised by the lack of awareness of that. So when we've had opportunities to speak to those adolescents, I've tried to let them know, you should be prepared for this. No matter what kind of job you're applying for, you should expect these types of questions, and just have a stock answer that just rolls right off your tongue because you're ready for it. You understand they're not looking for a right or wrong answer. You're not going to be shocked. You're not going to be scared. You can just really talk about yourself. And that's what they're really looking for. So those are some of the ways I've tried to help with that. But we haven't had, again, as many opportunities to talk to those high school seniors as I would like recently, but it is definitely on my agenda, something to work with. Additionally to that, I've had some ideas of trying to have some small workshops and clinics for filling out the FAFSA. Bureaucracy is something that people have a variable ability to work with. I am one of the people that doesn't bother at all. My wife doesn't understand how I can fill out tax forms, and it doesn't drive me crazy. form A to line C that is perfectly fine for me. But I honestly understand why people don't like it. And I think having some opportunities for people to understand how the FAFSA works, because it's a great way to get some money to help you with your education moving forward into college. But people balk at this really long government form and all these lines and details you need to fill out. So I like to have some clinics where we could have people who've done this before, are familiar with it, can show people how to fill them out. And just once you have that other person who's comfortable with it, that can kind of undermine some of the anxiety, that'll make it a lot easier. And once it's done the first time, then the subsequent years are just checking boxes and changing things that have been altered. But other than that, it's that initial anxiety about being involved and having to fill out this really long, onerous form.
That sounds very helpful. I think there's another question here, or just a comment maybe. I've recently seen publicity about Bakari Seller's new children's book, Who Are Your People? Sounds like it would be a great book for children at Nora Stewart. Are you familiar with that? Or
No, I'm not familiar with that. I'll take a note of it. I mean, I think even if we're not going to talk at Nora Stewart, book donations are always a great idea. And I wouldn't be too worried about getting something they already have or something like that, because if you're in a group of 30 or so preschoolers, I'm sure they could use replacements on a semi-regular basis.
Right. Yeah. So the person who asked that question could also donate the book, right? Or somebody else, or
Yeah.
several people.
Yeah. I mean, I think those kinds of things I think are great. And what I've come across, what I've tried to do also, is that there are a lot of books that try to have been more aware of some of that representation in the last few years. So I tried to find some of those. Oh my goodness. Thunderbird Jr. was an interesting Native American story about a young boy whose dad has a name and he's named the same, and how he goes through an interesting experience about feeling at first marginalized because he has the same name as his dad, but then goes through this process where he then feels proud because his dad had the same name and how he's following in their footsteps. And I thought it was a really great opportunity, and I have very few opportunities to read Native American stories in children's books. And I thought that was a really great thing. We found several really great Indian mythological stories, which I thought were really fun. And they have a very rich folklore with a lot of fables. So, a fanciful story that's meant to imply some type of lesson. And those are really awesome. I really enjoyed some of those. I managed to drop some of those off as well. And some of the Mo Williams books, I think, have been really great. And we do as much as we can to try to provide those opportunities for children to see images that look like them in those books, and allows them to have a different perspective.
Yeah, that leads to what maybe a question for Lauren was, is there a special section in the library that people can go to for books about minorities, Native Americans?
We don't have those books separated out in any special section, but we do have online lists in our catalog that put together books about all sorts of things, all kinds of diverse books in terms of everything from ability to gender identity to refugee status to ethnicity and race. So we do have a lot of really, and I feel like we've done a much better in the last few years, a really diverse collection of children's books. So ask at the Children's Desk, but also search our online catalog, because we have several lists put together that group those types of books together.
Yeah, thank you.
Displays as well.
And I will say, having had the experience, we had 2 children go through the public library system here in Columbia, and it's been really great. They have those opportunities were really helpful, and then having the readers come in were really great, and they definitely have lots of opportunities that are available. We really appreciate it.
Excellent, thank you.
Great. I didn't see additional questions, but I thought this might be, I had a question that I thought people might be interested in, and I'm interested in finding out, Dr. Williams, how you came to become a pathobiologist. what was your interest in history on that and that path?
Well, we have some time, so I'd be more than happy to tell you. Um, very early, I decided that I was looking into a career in science or law. I think those are my two directions. I really like a very detail oriented person, and I like research and I like to find out why things happen and why they work. Um, I was very skilled at taking things apart. I didn't like to put things together, so engineering wasn't the way I was going, but I really like taking them apart and seeing how they worked. So I kind of had that direction, and I was trying to pursue where I wanted to go. And I did some fun pre-law programs in my high school at magnet school in Florida, but I think I really settled on science. And I at first thought about becoming a medical doctor, but then I realized that that's a lot of talking to people, and I'm not really interested in that. I didn't talking to random people just wasn't really what I thought I wanted to do for the rest of my career. People are very nice, but I thought I am a very direct person, so I end up with butting heads a lot with people about things because I'm going to tell you exactly what you needed to do, and then you didn't do it. Well, then I told you what you should have done. I'm not sure what to do at this point. I don't know. My bedside manner wasn't great, so I figured I would be an animal doctor, and then I went to vet school at Tuskegee. My grandmother grew up in Alabama, and it was one of her goals as a young girl to go to that school. And I looked at all my options, and I thought, a vet school is a vet school. So I really applied there. So that as a kind of an homage to my grandmother, so she'd have one of her children or one of her lineage graduate from that school near where she grew up. And she really liked that. She was very proud. She was very happy to be at my graduation. And I went through my school training at Tuskegee University. And after that, during that process, I discovered that veterinarians talk to clients more than medical doctors. Oh, well, that didn't work out very well at all. I don't know if you recognize, but if you go to your doctor, most of that is nurse and other person. A very small window is actually talking to your doctor. If you go to your vet's office, it's a different story. You spend a lot of time talking to your veterinarian. And I was like, oh, that's not working out for me. And then I decided to do some zoo work because I was really interested in that. And I like zoo exotics. That's been a very profound interest of mine. Elephants is one of my favorite animals in the world, as see up there. And I wanted to do zoo work, and I thought that would be really fun. But one of the things I discovered from that, I think I got really involved in that, and that was my direction through vet school. Something that we may not recognize is there aren't really a lot of zoos. You think about it, that you've been to one, you've probably seen one, but let's say every state has 2 zoos. Okay, let's say there's 2 vets at every zoo. That's 400 jobs in the country. That's not a lot, and not every zoo has their own vet because they can't really afford them. Like, oh, well, that's a problem. But I still pursued it anyway, and I worked at Zoo Atlanta for a while, and I had a great time. I really loved my job. I actually loved my job so much, I forgot to pick up my paycheck twice. I'd show up my days off, and I'm like, oh, right, I get paid for this. I keep forgetting. And I had a really great time. I mean, who doesn't want to work with red pandas and bathing elephants and, feeding rhinoceros? I mean, this is every day was an adventure and lots of fun. And while I was doing that, but I was still trying to decide my long-term career goals because of the difficulty in finding and securing a job. Also, I like to travel quite a bit. Some friends and I got together and we just really thought hard about it and figured, it's not that difficult if you make a plan. And so between the time of graduating college and getting married, my 2 best friends and I, we went to Italy, we did Australia, we went to Germany, we went to Mexico, we went a lot of places, 3 guys, 7 days, let's do this. And we did hostels and we did all kinds of things. So as a job as a zoo veterinarian, you don't get a lot of time off either. It's like, ooh, that's going to be a problem. I won't be able to do any of that traveling because there's no one to cover for you. I mean, who do you hire to be relief vet for the entire zoo? A small practice is one thing, but 230 species, maybe not. So I was having some difficulties. And one day we were working on some samples from some zebra, and someone mentioned that we wouldn't get an answer back because the pathologists don't work on weekends. I'm like, who? who are these people that don't work on weekends? I want to know more about them, because if you pursue a job in veterinary medicine, you can pretty much kiss your weekends goodbye. Like, that's not feasible. Everyone else is available on the weekends, which means you have to be available. Your days off are usually Monday and Wednesday. You don't get Saturday and Sunday off, because that's when we need to be there so people work. And so I was like, oh, I can do this stuff. I can take things apart. I don't have to put them back together, because surgery was my also a strong area I was looking for. But surgery, you have to put things back. And like, well, that's not nearly as much fun. But so I got really involved with pathology, and I discovered a lot of the detective work that I like about medicine was really present there. And that's what I like to do. Some people get into medicine because they like to see things get better. Some people like to get into medicine because they like to be able to help, and then administering medications and practicing certain procedures. I like to figure out what it was and why it happened. And because of that, pathology offered me the opportunity to really investigate that. So I don't have a lot of emergencies. Something dies, it'll still be dead in an hour. So I don't have to rush in. But my job is I will tell you what happened based on physiological processes and understanding the pathogenesis of disease. And that's how I got really involved in it. And that's where my heart has been. And I love this part.
And then what brought you to Columbia?
Well, pathology residencies aren't very common. So I was in a situation where I had graduated, and I was, as a graduation gift to myself, I went to Australia for 8 weeks. So I was in a weird situation where the timing was off for most programs, and there was a program that had an availability in Columbia. So I came here, and I knew a few people because I'd met them through some vet school programs. So I had a couple of friends that were from here. So I decided I'd just come and give Missouri a try. I was really planning to stay for 2.5, maybe 3 years, and then go away, because I'm from Florida. So I don't like Missouri winters. This is terrifying. I think the first year I was here, there was an ice storm, and I called all my friends like, what does that mean? I had no concept of what an ice storm meant. I grew up in Miami. I have no idea what that means. But the residency went really well. I made a lot of great friendships, and I really like the way the vet school works. It's a very homey atmosphere. And I like the way that people interact with each other. I like the way that we work with our community here. And so I just never stayed. And that was 2002. So actually, like, next week, I'll have been here 20 years.
Well, we're so happy that you decided to come to Columbia, and that you're not only a vet pathobiologist, but that you're working with the Men's Minority Network to make change and improvements in the lives of people in Columbia. So I didn't know if you had some parting words. And before that, I wanted just to remind people that our Lunch and Learn program for next month, February, is February 8th. And we're going to have Carolyn Amperan and 2 other local climate action leaders talk about their commitment and urging the city council to work towards 100% electricity from renewable energy sources by 2030. So that's our next program. But Dr. Williams, do you have any parting thoughts or words for us?
Yeah, really quick, I saw another question from Brenda Pipes about the summer program, and we do indeed have a number of summer programs for students interested. There are 2 different groups, I think. There's a junior high school group and a high school group, and both of them come and spend a couple of weeks at the vet school, and they go through all of our different programs. They get spend some time shadowing, in the large animal field, the small animal field, and some of the surgical field. And then they also have one afternoon when they come through and do necropsy stuff with me. And that's available. I'm not sure who's running that at the moment, but if you call up to the main dean's office, I'm sure they can put you in touch with who's it. Actually, Doug Tyndall is probably the person you need to talk to. Let me put that in the chat. Name just occurred to me. So yeah, Doug Tyndall is who you need to contact, and he will set that up. But other than that, yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to come and tell you about what we're up to and what we're trying to do, and I appreciate the support. So thank you very much.
And we look forward to the League of Women Voters communicating with and interacting with the Men's Minority Network more in the future. I think there's a lot of possibilities there. So thank you so much for coming
Mhm.
and making that connection or furthering that connection.
Thank you
Thank
very much
you.
for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for viewing. And this is recorded, so please feel free to share the recording with everyone that you think would be interested.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Take care, everyone.
bye-bye.